Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Good afternoon. I live downtown. I understand this is a forum on preventing vandalism, and I wanted to offer maybe a different opinion because it looks a little homogenous in here.
Sure.
My short answer is: have you tried listening, or seeing the cause of the vandalism? Now, obviously, the long answer is basically the peak of the the brunt of the vandalism that's happening is tagging and like broken windows and stuff, right? Property damage. Things like tagging and graffiti, they're as old as human civilization. You can find people in Pompeii who wrote profanities or jokes or their names on walls. Physical vandalism, like the breaking of windows and property damage, that's also as old as people have been around. You value your property. So when you refuse to listen, I think certain people feel motivated to target said property. Historically, the only thing that really stops most people from vandalism uh, is the threat of state violence, right? So the knowledge that our wonderful boys in blue are going to beat you senseless and throw you in jail. That's what stops vandalism historically. Like that's how societies have addressed that. That is the logic that folks employ behind increasing police funding or having new patrols or new units to track down vandals and stuff like that. That's that logic that you're employing there. But we do know that this does not work here because no matter how many millions of dollars you folks are spending, how many coalitions you form, how many forums or panels, or how many rent-a-cops, or you privatize police officers or prosecutors, it doesn't matter. Like all of this has continued and has only gotten worse. You need to stop and like ask yourselves, why is this vandalism happening? I know the mayor and the police propaganda love to describe it as senseless anarchist violence or like mindless, but that's not the case. A large portion of the tagging clearly states its purpose and aims. You have like continuously ignored and dismissed people who have tried affecting this change peacefully or protesting nicely. As the deputy chief himself said, Saturday there were 4 demonstrations that ended without police involvement. And you have to ask yourself why that was, because they didn't affect anything. Nobody with any vested interest in the way things run right now was directly affected by said protests. So there was no need for the police to interfere. There was no media coverage. There was no, like it doesn't get the same reaction. The media doesn't even cover events that don't get declared a riot. You get, I have never seen the city, right, like Mayor Wheeler, the city council, address the hundreds of people who are out in our city right now doing volunteer organizations. Like I know people who run a volunteer org of 6 people and they feed 300 homeless people every other day. Not once have they received help or assistance from the city. Not that they want it or need it, but those are the kind of things that people are having to take into their own hand because our leaders choose to focus on a broken window. Some folks here, I don't think you guys have ever been past Cesar Chavez Avenue. There's like a whole city out there with needs that are very different from the Pearl District or the West Hills. Not everything needs to be geared towards tourism. And honestly, it seems like the city seems to focus on that angle so much. The mayor and the city council continue to completely ignore anyone who doesn't align with this. So people obviously are going to feel compelled to target the things that you don't ignore, like property damage. The fact that we're having this forum right now shows that the tactic of damaging property works because you have never had a forum for nonviolent protest addressing. The people who presumably are doing most of this vandalism, the protesters and those who are sympathetic to them, have made multiple demands clear to you from the very beginning. I know Ted Wheeler has seen this. Last year, on the 56th day of consecutive protests, he came down to the Justice Center for a photo op, and the most popular demands were beamed on the wall directly in front of him. The national media was glad to make this about Trump and pretend like Ted hadn't been tear gassing the city for 4 years before that. But those of us who live here know that's not the truth. The demands were listed as follow: defund the Portland Police Bureau by 50% at least and invest in communities, especially Black communities. Number 2, free all protesters from jail. Number 3, get the federal police out of Portland. And number 4, for Ted Wheeler to resign. They were in bright yellow. I know you saw these, Ted. Everybody cheered when they were read out loud. Not every protester would agree, I'm sure, right? We're not all like a monolithic, no group is a monolith. But if you really want to address the issues at hand, like the vandalism that these pro-district residents so much care about, then you should really start by addressing the points that are being brought by the people who are committing said vandalism And you know why people feel like this. This goes further back than George Floyd and further back than Portland police collaborating with and assisting Patriot Prayer, Proud Boys, and neo-Nazis at the expense of their own constituents. If you're wondering why people feel the need to resort to vandalism, it's because you have provided no real avenue for peaceful change. This entire country's history, and Portland's and Oregon specifically, is a continuous trial of letting sick people die, of letting hungry people starve, so that business associations and landlords can get their way. And the worst part is that you always try to weaponize identity politics in order to avoid any real changes. Anytime there's a real opportunity to change something, you just respond with more police violence, more little committees and to discuss, and then you just do the exact same thing you were doing before with a different name. There's a clear reason why the vandalism is happening, and you can either finally listening to what's being said and actually solve the problem, or you can keep trying what you've been trying and just keep throwing money at the issue and hope that it works this time, because people are starting to lose their patience with everything that you folks are doing. As the second speaker commented, numerous police officers have yet to be held accountable for a single thing. People like Craig Lemon, Eric Kammerer, Corey Budworth, John Oliphant, Brent Taylor, so many of these people who are repeat offenders, violent, sadistic, and not a single peep from the city. Oh, that's not my responsibility. I don't take care of that. That's the prosecutor. We need a grand jury. It goes on and on. And you expect the people who are upset enough to break a window to meet you halfway when you won't even step down from your position on this. That's all I have to say.
Good, thank you. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions in response. When you say listen to your demands, do you mean listen or do you mean agree to all of them?
Honestly,
I've heard your demand.
Yeah, so preferably,
I've commented on your demands and I reject them. I don't agree with them. That's my opinion and I'm entitled to it.
Yeah, that's completely understandable, right? Like you said, you're entitled to your opinion. But when you choose to do this, to ignore a large portion of your population who feels this way, right? Let's not forget that most people voted against you in the popular election. When you choose to ignore this, when you choose to ignore what your people are asking you.
I responded to their concerns. I gave my honest feedback to concerns that were expressed. I do not believe the police bureau should be defunded by at least 50%. I think that would be reckless and irresponsible. I think it would eviscerate public safety in the community.
So that's another thing.
I am not willing to resign because I was elected through a democratic process and I still believe in democracy. I don't believe in anarchy.
Sir, you had to break election campaign law that we all voted for, donate $150,000 to yourself, ignore any calls for accountability.
You made your point.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I'm hearing you say is it's not listening you're interested in. You want me to agree with you. And I'm sorry.
No, what I am saying,
I do not agree with you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective.
Javier, we have to move on. I think we've given you, you've actually had the most time tonight and the most interaction with the mayor. Cindy.